Ah, okay. Nice. I had to make sure that starting this off before we get started with a fair bit of updates on how things are at the moment. Needed to make sure that a nice midget of footage was processing as efficient as it should have. Okay, so considering that this is of course going to be a recording, isn't going to be any of the normal intros with this. It's just simply going to be unfiltered, unedited, raw, unscripted, and whatnot. Um, well, to put it pretty basically all out in the open, everything is as you could see it. If you could probably cut it out on your fingers, one, without a doubt, I'm quite sure, without having to be told, it's more than likely bad audio. Bad audio, very mediocre avatarish movement. But this is, of course, a product of my own making from uh, the VC Face app.
The search for your next where to starts here at chasetravel.com.
Hate seeing ads.
Okay, no music. We'll have no music either. Huh. Looks like it'll have to be some kind of method for me to learn towards editing in order to loop it on my own. But nonetheless, for that kind of music source, it is of course located on the bottom left of your screen. Provided by that. So that is of course the source of music for the BGMs or soundtracks that you of course hear. And despite having applied it on loop, it doesn't loop for some strange reason. I don't know how that is or why that happens. But regardless, any other song that I would like to play on the YouTube, it loops up itself perfectly on repeat over and over. I'm not entirely sure, but I suppose it has something to do with like sponsored or official channels of sorts. That's yet another thing that has to be looked into in such a case. But apologies for rambling on. So, it's been a year since I've established a mediocrum of control within the animus itself, the very station or labyrinth of numerous information and wealthy stories and tales of numerous legends that establish themselves within the throes of human history in any and all universes. With that aside, I would say I would love to perform a no immeasurable experiment in terms of sources. So, this experiment, I would say, is to determine the length of viewership that expand depending on the presence of delivery. For example, let how many if it was a to be placed into like a bit source, it'd be like, oh yeah, you can get about 10 people to see this video that you were uploading up on YouTube versus if they were like to witness it live on hand, it would instead be like 24 or so. Versus if it were edited, with numerous kinds of overlays, different kinds of assets or accessories put within the video itself, how big would that expand to? How much more drawn in does it impact the people who witness or discovered the video itself in that presence, in that spectrum? It would definitely be more than the 10 or the 24 viewed video when it is seen in that same duration of time, I would imagine. Because, like, who's not going to click on the screen that, suddenly gets bombarded by a tremendous logo of any specific brand, such as Snickers? Snickers here on the left, Snickers here on the right, Snickers here on the bottom. Oh, Snickers in my face. Oh my God. That kind of thing. So, obviously, that's going to start encompassing a presence of curiosity within the human mind. Because, let's be honest, let's be totally honest here. Among all of the creatures throughout the universe, as far as we know, wouldn't you agree that the humans themselves are the most interesting? One primary perspective is one can view an individual like a book. They have a lot of story within them. They've gone through a lot of trials, they have concepts, their own morals, they've encountered their own conflicts. They have a plethora of worldly knowledge to tell from their experiences to how they live their life. I would like to say I possess that form of encompassing human application as well, in such a regard. Hmm. But yeah, aside from that, experiments will be, of course, run within many of these different categories. So, I suppose, in such a way, if it would be taken by a quote from a particular antagonist within Batman, it'd be like basically riddle me this, and we'll see where that results or hypothesis turns out. Now, next topic, of course, is in regards to what has been going on this entire time. I would have to say, for the past several years, it has been a constant struggle towards keeping a grasp of my own power within my own hands in such a case. To put it simply, you can put a label of power into anything, honestly. For example, you have power of light. You can see with it, obviously. And honestly, light, yeah. You have power of money, where the value of effort is placed into a monetary, into a not a monetary, um material, materialistic value. That being a form of currency. And with such a form of currency, you can purchase a lot of things, which becomes a purchasing power. And you then have like the power of the sun, which gets established as the solar power. You have a power of electricity, power of one's own mind, and pretty much that kind of pretense of description pretty much goes with anything and everything, especially when it comes to like actually there's no wrong way about it at all in any form. It all simply comes down to how it is, of course, used. The power of good and evil. That's a bit interesting. Thinking about it right now. Apologies. My inner thoughts are roaming a little bit, but I'll reel them back in. So, without getting too far off what I wanted to mention earlier, what what I have been doing this far in a year, as I mentioned before, trying to keep the power within my own grasp without having losing it at all has been quite a tremendous struggle. Put it simply, it's been pretty much a struggle towards keeping a tight, firm grip on financial power. Because it seems that magic things can happen, when it comes to that power in general. You can make things happen when you have enough of it. Hmm. Yes, just a bit of a moment of silence just to simply concoct what form of things that can be determined or established with that kind of power. Just providing a little bit of time to stir the pot in such a case, in such a way. In some cases, I suppose that is also a bit of a self maintenance that I need to also work on. Having to simply pause for a long period of time, which is not the most ideal consistency that needs to be applied to in this form when it comes to interacting with different people. For example, if I was in a bit of silence without any explanation, who's to say if I'm like not taking a drink or petting the cat or picking a nose? It's all about concept, and it doesn't help that certain applications of different apps, such as filters for the mic, improve the silence. It makes you become capable of tasting it, or could have probably even set the setting of bringing about a means of triggering one's anxiety in one form or another. So, among one of the many things that have ended up becoming a absolutely terrible headache of a struggle, besides financial power, it is of course the presence or state of things at the moment. For example, um, I'm not entirely sure if my voice is being projected in the best form that it could with my current mic, or if the recording as of this moment or from my previous streams before my hiatus a year ago have been of the best quality that they could be from such a state. Hmm. And that was all because the main priority was to ensure that my own existence was established as a self-preservation, to ensure that at the very least preservation was pretty much high priority. Self-preservation is of course important, otherwise you end up becoming endangered to your own self. And if you don't exist, then that pretty much makes you extinct. And that should pretty much already be a given in uh such a simple, well thought out explanation. Mm, man, this feels like, as interesting as humans are, with the trials and tribulations that they themselves have to endure and go through, having to survive as a human is pretty rough business, you know? It's not like out in the wild where all you need to do is just keep maintenance of your own territory, hunt whenever you feel hunger, and then breed. Living out as a wild animal, making sure that you're able to establish a presence of security for yourself. Like, for example, porcupines with their quills, or skunks with their scent, with their ability to spray potential predators that go after them. They have those defensive mechanisms within them from birth. It is, of course, a part of their own evolution. And then it's also a matter of their own species social integration. For example, the differences between a pack of wolves and a pride full of lions. They both have this conjoined functionality about them and whatnot, but they also possess completely different operations in such a form. Now, with humans, like going back to on the into the case of humans, to put it bluntly, yes, natural resources are quite essential to one's own survival, much like with all other things. Yeah, that's pretty much already a given. Food, water, and shelter, and whatnot. But it can also become a lot more complex than one realizes. For example, some people work better within groups, while others are great with taking care of themselves on their own, being pretty much the lone wolf in a figure of speech. But all of this together can either be helped or mm, can either help or hurt if the resource aside from food, water, and shelter and warmth and clothes. Basically, food, water, shelter, warmth, cloth, warmth. Would there be something like a fifth one I'm missing there? Security. I suppose security is one. All of these is accomplished with financial power. If you don't have money, then it becomes extremely difficult to live in. And it also depends on the presence of location. Like, unless you're capable of surviving and thriving on your own, or with a collective group within a place of the world that helps with accommodating you, or being able to learn how to adapt to such a harsh environment, then whether or not you have any financial finance powered anemones actually determines whether or not you're capable of being able to survive and meet out your own purpose within life itself. Sorry, I'm starting to get a bit philosophical here in this case. It's definitely got me on a really heavy think, very heavy thinking. So, before or prior to the struggles of financial acquisition, I was of course establishing tasks and performing work with those affiliated with the healthcare. That being one of the primary objectives by personal standing, not by anyone else's orders. But it was, of course, to help with accommodating and healing the lives of others. It wasn't much in such a fashion or way, but it was supposedly meant to be honest work. And unfortunately, there are those who end up becoming far too unfit to to manage such a essentially vital system that helps support and accommodate another person's way of life in a health setting. That said, I had to take up measures towards grasping grasping financial power in another way or method. So it was, of course, through this very medium here, or vessel, however you would wish to refer to it as. And after after quite a bit of time had passed, it seems that it will not work as well if certain conditions are not met. One is, of course, having a supportive presence of financial power coming to you constantly from the get go in order to preserve your own way of life, being able to live. And by that same presence of onflowing financial power, enable you to establish a means of creating a stronger application in order for you to use such a medium, such as this. Because it definitely is very difficult to do so if you don't make use of it in the standard of financial power, but more so of a physical power. So, say, let's see, for example, I'm going to let me put up MS Paint. Okay, and I think I can bring it up here. Okay. So, let's see. Putting this into a bit of a perspective, and please don't mind the crappy artwork. Just consider this as a bit of a basis of a reference. So let's say you have a few lines here representing um, 100 people each, right? Each line represents equals 100. And you have a company here. That's, of course, establishing a means of hiring. The company hiring is, of course, setting certain distinct basis of getting the highest quality out of these 400, right? So among them, they distinguish them into different kinds of categories. Like, let's say, this will work. No, this won't work. Can I get free roaming here? This will work. So saving fear in this case, you got the first 100 that already works. Already works. Already works for the company. And then this one. It's attempting to be new hires. This one is then the references. And then this one is basically other. And we'll just simply label it as OOTH. And I'll finish it off. Yeah. So right off the bat, they reduced their selection down to 1. So it's the lines after time has passed. Time passed. Selection of 4. So automatically after the selection of 4, they have 2 of these. Knock it again. Knock it again. So now, in this case, it's because of that they have to go through the struggles of the competitive employment, which fucking sucks. And this is what I had come to believe for a long time, of how all businesses run. Process of selection. This is, of course, my experience in such a regard to work at this building. And here's the door. company. Company A. So with this as super vague as hell as it can get. This is basically what I had imagined all companies to, pretty much run. I would have never thought or imagined that there would be basically a company company B. To have a means of basically hiring in the form of quantity. So we'd have basically 100, and they acquire all of their members through the process of draft. So if you're good and if you hit the right bells for them, everyone has the opportunity to get in on it. Everyone, not this cutthroat bullshit. So it's nice to see. Very nice to see that there are a massive amount of different methods for people to be able to put their physical, mental, or intellectual power into the test. Everyone gets in. Just hit the belts. Those. No cut. Throat competition. Hmm. I suppose looking at this from another point, in order to locate these, it's probably ideal to view the processes of a company objectively. For a primary example, you would always have you would always have a necessity for a large amount of people when it comes to maybe law enforcement, maybe dealing with mail, um, probably dealing with mm, schooling or education. I believe it ends up becoming a company A situation if you start acquiring more specific towards a certain skill set, such as for an example, being a neurologist or a biotechnical engineer, which is extremely very specific and requires a godly amount of schooling in such a case. Which I suppose in that when you look at it that way, it does make sense. But I suppose that is, of course, what makes a difference between careers and jobs. Hmm. Yeah, that is definitely one type of way to look at it in a specific light. Wow, going on 43, 43 minutes. This is definitely going to be a long video. Well, I suppose when I attempt to perform this out again, I'm going to shorten it extremely dramatically to about a fourth the size in such a case. That way, it doesn't end up boring a lot of you. But that is, of course, some of the self struggle that I and very likely and 100% accurately, most, if not all, humans are subjected to endure. Right. So, with that, um, moving on, moving forward. In the time with attempting to deal with such matters or inhale the copium, there's always a hobby or presence of interest that one acquires in order to relieve the stress, ease the mind, and stay calm, press home. Without a doubt, if many of you watchers out there aren't aware, in the case of the archival wolf, it'll be Hololive, or more or less VTubers or V streamers in general. They themselves portray a presence of the book likeness that establishes an interest for many of their viewers. So I myself consider myself a very notable reader and great, a great listener. And with that being the case, I find numerous interests in such such individuals, such existences, streamers and whatnot. They have such interesting stories to tell and experiences. Their reactions also help with such matters as well as their innate talents and abilities, such as their abilities to sing, draw, to entertain, to be funny. And all of this on top of being able to share in their own experiences as well, which pretty much becomes icing on the cake. This, these select champions of of entertainment entertainment industry and providers of mental well-being and helpfulness help with help with not only healing the head, they also heal the heart, heal the soul, and in such case, it does help. It does help health wise, you know? Whether they are individuals that inspire you to do your best, or whether or not they just simply give something back to the community, whether it be either via through charities or just being themselves and helping to enable people to get on about their days after having such a rough time dealing with challenges that they themselves ended up having to experience or endure within their day to day activities. They're good. They're really good. They do. They're doing the Cummings work. Yeah. Huh. All right. So during, of course, my absence, I've also been able to take the time to complete a huge amount of stories on my list. By stories, I of course mean anime. A lot of tales and a lot of stories and presences of conflicts that many of the uh, individuals that were brought to being by creators' minds have been going through and how they tackle such challenges or what discoveries or presences of self-preservation have they themselves have made or established in order to uh, advance throughout their own stories. For example, I've constantly been following One Piece this entire time. I've also been up to speed mostly with Naruto and his child Boruto. Then there's, of course, the natural world of Tight Moon's own creation, the Fate series. Of course, talking about where you have the Fate Zero, you have Fate Stay Night, Fate Kaleido Ilir, you have Fate Grand Order, and many other notable titles and entries brought on by these creators. I, of course, myself would, of course, wish to be established as one of them in the future. Not much. But either way, in any case, there's a lot of stories, a lot of franchises to get into. And I don't want to simply drag that on, but I'll, of course, make a compiled list of all of those stories of animes that I have watched through all of its entirety. Because that should be a broadcast of its own. But yeah, if for anything, in an attempt to edit this in future reference, take for example, if you of course are familiar with Luffy and the Straw Hats 2 year training arc, which makes it established as one of those iconic time skips, where you would have, of course, Monkey D. Luffy placing his iconic straw hat upon a stone, to which he is, of course, training on that island. It'll be pretty much established as the same representation here. Me going through my own 2 year arc in order to better improve and establish a more solid concept of action towards my own ambition. That in and of itself would be iconic. And for that type of context, I'll just simply put a badly drawn animation of it right here. We got the straw hat. And I'll draw it like this. There you go. 1 year down, 1 year to go. I might even finish even before another year has passed. Who's to say? But to put that into a bit of a finality, let's see, 1 year down. Year down. Basically, with my own self reflection. One year or less to go for the complete training time skip. Yep. And so that's basically how it is. Let's see. There are a fair bit of listed unfinished games that I have yet to complete. Those, of course, are being Scarlet Nexus or Resident Evil 2. Still need to look into completing uh, Laura's side of the story. Breath of the Wild, and I believe that's it. In terms of the projects, we still have the mass errand projects going on. Still going to be looking into figuring out how to work a Patreon properly. In terms of self maintenance, also, I forgot to mention um, numerous repairs that I need to apply upon myself now that financial power is well regulated and maintained. I need to fix myself up too, because I'm, of course, very ill repaired. First comes my mouth, then comes the voice, the body, then comes the external matters such as the setup, the repairing and renovation of not only the setup but also the animus, the archive itself, archive halls. Going to really make it halls actually in such a in fashion. Mm-hmm. Um, yeah. And then with that in mind, I'd like to determine what limits that can be established. Like, obviously, there's been numerous forms of content that have been performed in the forms of live 3Ds. And the presence of assets that are applied towards um, such models, both 3D and 2D, thereafter. So I want to know exactly how far one can push to those limits. Like for an example, if I were to take one of the core aspects that are well known among those who are familiar with the JoJo adventuring world, you would have those lines that would often repeat. Um, that would establish the presence of menacing, menacing aura, and it would be once again apologies by the basis of bad drawing. It would of course be a constant repeat of this and copy. As that presence alone continues shifting and waving while it moves up. And that right there is one of the notable curiosities of what I'd like to know whether it's possible to establish. I'm not certain whether or not it would be determined as a gift or if it's like an asset. So that's, of course, where the research comes in. And I want to implement those kinds of aspects into future streams and future VODs or clips and whatnot. Whether or not it can be done like live in action, or if it's something that can only be edited. So Hey, that's what I'm going to, of course, study or research, do research into. Um, already covered plans of what I'd like to um establish in internal external things, such as, for example, the setup. I would like, of course, a proper desk. Would like to get into towards purchasing a proper desk at this point instead of using a side table with makeshift surfaces such as a cooler fridge or a centuries old coffee table in such a case. So yes, I would love to establish this as a proper office. Um, that pretty much covers the whole 9 yards in this that regard. Um, with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in into the update into things. I'm not entirely sure how much time it'll take, but at most, by my expectations, it'll be no more than a year. No less than, that's of course question mark. Huge question mark in big bold fashion. Wait, put that right back. Time wise. And that pretty much covers all things in terms of what has been going on or in the works for the year. All right. With that in mind, that pretty much will bring it close to the recording.